Hey guys, it's your boy DC underscore darling, back at it. Finally, we're gonna start testing, okay? So, I quickly want to point out this amazing resource that I always use as a reference and a guide when I'm testing Flask applications. This will be our guide in a way, but we're gonna really simplify this whole process. But as you can see, we're importing unit test, we're creating our test class, and of course, inheriting from unit test case. And then of course we have setup and teardown method, and this is where the code is executed before each test, and over here is code that is executed after each test. Probably where you'll want to kill your database, but we're not using a database, so we'll probably leave this empty. But again, link in the description, amazing resource to look at. So the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial, our focus will be on this route. So I'm going to copy this, go back to our code from where we left off, and I'm gonna go to auth and views.py, and I'm just gonna update this to be the same as our guide documentation. Okay, and then I am gonna remove this, and I'll put pass, and maybe we'll add methods, and we'll set that to this should be post. Okay, just a quick change for that. And we're not now using JSONify, so I'm gonna remove JSONify. We'll add it when we need it, so we're good for now. So I'm gonna go to our test directory because that's like the core purpose of this tutorial, and from a test something is what we had. I'm gonna rename this. Where is rename? I'll change it to test underscore scholarly auth.py. Remember, test files gotta have this test underscore prefix to them. Okay, sorry, oh man, I have, let me rename that again. It's test underscore auth.py. Okay, what is going on? I have done something, I don't know. Oh, this, I'm gonna delete this. Sorry, I don't know what I've done, probably messed things up, but I'm also gonna delete. Where are we? Delete permanently. This makes no sense. What is this? Just gonna delete the whole directory. I don't know what I've done, probably clicked something, and sorry. So over here we have our test directory, and then in tests we'll have a file called test underscore auth.py. So this is our test file. So quickly do a docstring. We'll say this module tests endpoint, for example, and then we want to import a couple of things. We will need JSON, unit test, and our app, the one we use to instantiate Flask. So import JSON, okay, import unit test, and then from we want to go event API. So event API, and then we get to this. So from event API, we want to import app. Okay, all the inputs we'll need for now. We want to keep the first test very simple. Okay, so we need to create a class for our test. So I'm simply going to call it class test auth endpoint, for example, and of course it's going to take in it's going to inherit from unit test case. So this is where we'll have our session methods, sessions essentially. Okay, so in this class, sorry, forgot colon. So this class will contain various methods that will test various things. But before we get to the methods, we want to create our setup and teardown, as you can see over here. So I'm gonna skip this too, because as you can see with this decorator class method and the setup, it's code that is executed before all tests in one test run. So we're not going to use that and this one, but we're going to use setup and tear down, but probably going to put a pass over here. Okay, so back to our code. I'm going to put some doc strings there and say class that handles auth and point tests. Okay, again, my doc strings suck. Please do a better job. You don't have to name your class with test. You can name your class any way you want, but your file has to have a test underscore prefix and your methods as well. So let's start with setup and tear down. So let's create a method called setup, and we'll pass in self. And for the doc string, I'm simply gonna copy this. Where is it? Say code that is executed before each test. Paste that there. Kill that. Okay. So we of course want to set the testing to be equal to true. So app.testing will be true. I don't know why I have a feeling I've messed something up, but we'll figure it out in a minute. Sorry, and then we want to get the test client again, as we can see, where in this guide of how to test a Flask application, and they explain we're creating a test client, and of course setting it to true so that we can get the exceptions propagated. So we've done same thing. Where is it? Testing to true, and then we need to create the test client. So we'll say self the app. This one can be capital. No, it should be small because we'll get an error. I'm sure the error will get the pilot sort of warning, which equals to app dot test client. So we got our test client. If I save that real quick, as you can see over here, it's complaining about conforming to snake case because this is not a constant. So this is app, and I know this apps are confusing, but when you point at it, for example, you see this one is Flask, meaning this is the one we instantiate Flask with, and this one is different. Okay, so I'm gonna save that. Sorry, I still have this crazy code. One more thing we want to do, we want to create like some default data. Anytime we register a user, this is what we'll have. So I'll put self.data, and it will equal to some Python dictionary JSON sort of illusion. So let me put it that way. Gonna hit enter, and we'll have username, as you can remember, a schema. So let's say user1, for example, and then simple password, and we'll say password. So sort of illustrates when you use something like Postman and you try to input your data. So we're done with the setup method. Next thing we want to do, we want to probably do the tear down, which we don't exactly need. We can skip it because of course we'll pass it. We don't, as you can see, where's the purpose of tear down? Over here, code that is executed after each test, and we don't have any code that we'll need to execute after each test. Okay, so we're gonna skip that, and we will go straight to testing register or registration. So we'll create a method and we call it test register, for example. Of course takes itself, and our doc string will say test for successful registration, maybe registration. I am so so tired. It's been a crazy long day. As you can see, it's 2 in the morning and I'm out here doing this. So this is our test for the register method. If you've successfully registered it, this is the test for it. Our method's got to start with a test underscore. Okay, so it's not like class names, which you're free to name it however you want. So let's start with it. I'm going to create a variable response, which will sort of illustrate the way we'll use something like Postman to input data. So sorry, response is going to be equal to self.app, which is, where is it? Somewhere over there. somewhere here, self app, okay, the test client, and it should be a get method, not get post, because we're posting something. What are we posting? What endpoint are we posting to? It's let me just copy it from here. It's this one over here. I'm gonna copy that. Sorry, I'm gonna paste it there. So that's the endpoint we're posting to. We also need to pass in the data that we're posting, and as you can see, our data is this one. So made a typo there. Should be data. Okay, so our data will be, we're dumping our data, so json.dumps, and that's self.data. And one more thing we want to like specify, it's JSON type, so our content type, so content underscore type, which equals to application JSON. If you've used Postman, this should be fairly familiar, because we're posting to this endpoint, and the data we're posting is this, which will be what you'll type in, and then have to make sure that our content type is application JSON. Gonna skip lines just to make things maybe a bit clear. So yeah, and let me save. Yeah, as you can see, we've not used it yet. We're gonna fix this in a minute. But again, we're posting to this endpoint, and this is the data we're posting, and we want to make sure that it's JSON. Okay. So what else do we want to do? Before our sessions, we want to load the response. So let's quickly create a variable. Maybe let's call it result, which is going to be equal to json.loads loads. Okay, and this is our data, which is response.data. Of course, it's over there, the data that we're passing in. And so we want to start handling our assertions, so we can say it self.assert. For now, self.assert equal. Have I misspelled? No, it's okay. Self.assert equal, and with result username. Let me put double for consistency. Username. Sorry. Username is going to be the username that we have over here, which is user1. I'm just going to copy and paste it there. And then, of course, password. So self.assert equal, and yeah, misspelled something. Assert equal. Okay. We're going to refactor this tests shortly. So this is password, and our password is, that should be quoted. I don't know why I'm making so many typing mistakes. It's been a long day, guys, forgive me. So we're returning our username and a password for now, but we'll have this, we'll refactor our tests later, but we're following TDD. We'll write tests, make them fail, write code to make them pass, and then refactor. So we will also want to pass our status code, so self.assert equal, and response.status code is going to be we're inputting data, so that should be 201. Sorry for, I think I'm being very slow. This TDD cycle is really hard to grasp. Okay, so yeah, I think everything looks neat for now, and we just want to do an if main block over here. If, I'm sure you know the standard, equals to main, then we want to run the unit test. So unit test domain, save that. What errors do we have? We have no problems. So yeah, let's run this tests. So Python -m unit test, and this is under, where is this, event API tests. So event API tests. Oh my god, why do we have an events folder? This makes no sense. Oh, this is event route. Okay, sorry. This is misplaced. Yeah, we've made a big mistake. So this folder should be on the same level as over. How do I move it? How do I move it? Okay. We want to move this test directory. Okay, it should be in the same level as API. So I'm gonna drag it out and make sure it's over there. So is it in the same level? Yes. So test, this is tests, and then we want to test auth.py. So if we run the tests, we see that it has failed. Okay, so that's a good sign. Now the next thing probably we want to do is we want to make the tests pass for now, and as you can see in the tests, so this should act as a guide. So in this endpoint, so on successful registration, we want to return the username and the password. Of course, we probably don't want to return the password, so I'm going to remove this. So on successful registration, maybe we want to return a status code saying okay, sorry, and username and the password, for example. So let's do that. Let's even change it. Let's make it make more sense. So self.assert equal, and now let's leave it like this for now. Let's just return the username. We'll refactor later. So if on successful registration, we'll just have a username being returned and the status code of 201. I'm gonna save that, run the tests. Our tests have failed. Now let's make the test pass real quick. Okay, so we're not gonna save anything in our storage sorry, in our storage for now. We're just gonna do an illusion of how things would work. So we're not implementing our models yet. Okay, so let's create a variable data which equals to request.get JSON. Okay, so we need to import requests. So request is under Flask, I guess. So of course, maybe we'll need JSONify, maybe we'll need make response. Okay, so sorry, we have data, and then we want to get the username and the password. So create a variable username which equals to username data username. So this will be like a dictionary of sorts, and getting this key username, and then password is going to be data password. Okay, simple enough. Now we want to return a response, so return make response, and this is where this JSONify it, and this is going to be let's return a status. Okay, let's just say status is okay. I'm gonna violate a bit test driven development. Say username. I don't like this things popping up. Oh, made a mistake there. Username is username, which is what we input, so it's gonna return a status okay, or username, which is username, and that's it. And then our status code, which we're gonna pass it there, which is 201. Okay, so one more thing in our test, want to make sure our status is okay. So going back to the tests over here, let's just say self.assert equal, and result, how do you call it? To call it status. Status is okay. Comma, and this should be okay. Looks good. I'm gonna save that. Where are we? Views. So status okay, and we're returning the username. Only those two things. So status okay, username, and the status code is 201. the username, so status okay, the username and 201. That's good. That should be enough to make our test pass. So let me save that, try to run our tests one more time. Okay, we have failed. Something is wrong. Unused variable password. Yeah, there shouldn't be a problem. Oh, it has passed. I'm sorry. Run one test and it has passed. Okay. So again, if we probably try to sort of illustrate this in Postman, let me run the server. So Python run.py over here. So if I open Postman, okay, come on, Postman. Okay, so it's, what is our endpoint? It is API auth register, and our body, let's for example say user1 and maybe password. So we should, I hope it's big enough. Okay, I don't know how to zoom it, but anyway, we should get a response of okay and user1, but we shouldn't get the password. So if I hit send, we're getting status okay and user1. So quick summary before I kill this episode. We have not implemented models. We're not storing this data in data structures. Again, we're not using a database, but let me do some quick refreshes. So we started by creating tests for the register endpoint, this one, and so as a couple of things we need, but the core ones, we need to import unit test, which is a standard library and allows us to test, and then we need to import our app, and this app is the one we use to instantiate Flask, and that app I'm talking about is this one over here. App equals to Flask __ name. That's the app we're importing. Okay, now we create a test class and we're calling it test auth endpoint. You don't have to call it test, you can name anything you want, but two things you gotta name with a test prefix are like the methods themselves, test underscore, and the file itself, test underscore. But the class, you can name it anything you want, and of course it's inheriting from test case, and this is where we're getting the assertions, and the assertions I'm talking about are assert equal, assert not equal. There's so many assertions going on. Okay, so setup, this is the code that is executed before each test, and so before each test we want to get our test client, and this is just some data which kind of resembles what we have. So if this one from here, the highlighted data, is the same as the one we played with in Postman, which is up here, this one. So sorry, sort of illustrating getting data from the client. Okay, so then we have a test register method, and this is the one we're using to test for successful registration. So we've not done any sort of validation yet. We're just assuming that if you put in the correct username and password and you register, then successful registration test is, this is what we handled. So we're creating a variable response which is posting to this endpoint, and we're just dumping the data and making sure that the content type is JSON. Same thing we did in Postman. We're making sure that it's JSON, and this is the data, and it's post, as you can see over here. So similar thing. So we're getting the response data, and this is where we can the response, this is where we can check if the status being okay and the username being user1. So that is the same as this one over here, what we're getting as a response. Okay, and then of course we're getting a 201, which means successful. The next thing we did, we made our tests pass by simply getting some data from the user, and that's we're getting the username and the password. And then we, once if this is successful, okay, of course we have no conditions to check whether this is successful, but assuming everything goes on okay, we're returning a status OK and the username. There's two things in the status code 201, which is exactly what we're testing for. So I'm sorry, my cold is getting worse, and probably I'm not as clear as I probably would have been, but like I promised you guys, I'm gonna try and make at least one episode every single day. So before I finish this tutorial, I want to stop the terminal, the server, and we want to push everything to Git. So Git status, we have a lot of things we haven't pushed. So I want to create a new branch, and we'll call this 3, and it's a feature, and say user can register, for example. So let's push everything there. So git add everything, git commit -m, and we'll call it feature. Say a user can register. I know a user can't exactly register because we want to persist this data to our data structures, which we'll create over here, and maybe we'll add another file to handle the logic, but that's for the future. Okay, so user can register, and then git push. Oh yeah, it's in the local, and we also want to make it reflect in the remote. So git push set upstream origin. Okay, so put in our username and our password, and that should be it. So guys, thanks for watching. Again, if the things I was talking about didn't make a lot of sense, this is not a tutorial per se, this is a guide, Andela101 guide. Okay, so next episode we'll handle refactoring these tests and maybe try to store this in data structures. Okay, it's been your boy DC_Darling. Got a question, comment down below, but it is peace from my side. Next time, guys.